peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
Sorry. Good morning, viewers. Welcome to Punchline Africa Television, broadcasting all the way from the Political Command Center in Africa. Thank you for watching Punchline Africa Television. Today is Friday, and on Friday usually we go slow. We look at the week that was. What happened in the week? Where were the presidents of Africa? Who was in Africa? Where in the world? What happened across the world? But first of all, this morning, we shall look through the Kenyan newspapers, find out how much, how far, what are the happenings in the Republic of Kenya. The Star newspaper says Raila hints at a new pact with Kalonzo. The next newspaper that you see on the Bring It Back, the Nation newspaper, talks about Raila plus Okoa making of a grand coalition. That one is here. And the next newspaper talks about three key newspapers warming up to each other. Basically, all the papers in Kenya show the same subject. All of them. The unity of purpose, Zimio ya Umoja. I don't know, Tawishi will tell me whether that is good Swahili or not. Azimio ya la moja.
Azimio la umoja.
Azimio la moja, la umoja. Unity of purpose, isn't it?
Yes.
Unity of purpose in English. And that is what Raila Odinga is seeking to have. And I believe this is exactly what the situation is. Thank you very much. Across the bridge, this is Unfiltered show, a show that talks the truth and nothing but the truth. Let me begin with Sharon. Good morning.
Thank you very much, Dr. Matanga, and very good morning to you. Right at the Political Command Center, my colleague panelists, Samuel Tawish and Daniel Wesonga, to all our viewers who are watching us, whether it's afternoon or evening, good morning.
What is it that has interested you in the newspapers? Cut it short.
In today's headlines, just like you talked about, the making of, a grand coalition that is between the Oka team and Raila. And I believe this is exactly the words that you put out here yesterday during the session. And for me, even during the national delegate conference that was yesterday for Wiper Party, besides all the manifestos that were laid out, I think one thing that really stood out for me in that meeting is that unity of purpose was more pronounced, and unity of purpose is paramount. So as long as that is a common language between all of them, it doesn't matter whatever kind of different different agendas and different, ideologies and blueprints they all have. At the end of the day, what is more pronounced and what, was more pronounced is the unity of purpose. And that is what, lies in the docket and, in the docket of, the former Prime Minister, that is Raila Odinga. So, looking at all, what happened yesterday now, it is a signal to say probably within no time that this Oka team will actually move to the former, that is the traditional ally, because at the end of the day I believe they have good synergy, they have formidable force, they have exponential values that they could work hand in hand with the former Prime Minister, because they either unite or perish. When I look at individuals, like Kalonzo, there's one thing that he said about cutting taxes by 50, it's going to reduce taxes by 50%, and at the same time clear the debt within 2 years. So for me, when I look at that ideology, for me it doesn't really make sense on how you'll be able to cut taxes at the same time actually clear debt. When he talks about free education, I thought this is something that is already there, but when he talks about the 24-hour economy, that is something that also lies in the docket of the former Prime Minister. He's talked about economic and even social liberation. So at the end of the day, they will just to be a culmination of them getting together and working together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sharon. Tawish, what it picks out for you on the papers, because they talk about the same thing, please.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Dr. Ari, and thank you, colleague panelist Sharon Gitonga, as well as Daniel Sean Wesonga, and of course our viewers watching this program in Kenya, Africa, and the rest of the world. And Dr. Masanga, so much was said at yesterday's NDC. If that would make really the reference of what we are discussing in as far as the major headlines today in the newspapers right here in Kenya. But I suppose on my side, Dr. Ari, what came out is exactly what you've said, the unity of purpose, the Azimio la Umoja. Sometime, I think 2 or so days ago, when, of course, the One Kenya Alliance principals went and met with the Mount Kenya political leaders leadership caucus that was led by Martha Karua, the former Justice Minister and Gishugu Member of Parliament. There's something that really came out, and if anyone really bothered to read the kind of posts that I put on Facebook, I did say that all rivers and streams start at some point, at some high point. Small rivers and streams may join together to become larger rivers. Eventually, all the water from rivers and streams will run into the ocean or an island body like a lake. And I think that was the post that I did put, Dr. Ari, on my Facebook page. What I was essentially trying to say is that we are seeing so much really happening in as far as 2022 succession politics is concerned. But what rings in my mind, and I think to most observers, is that by the end of the day, we are going to see all these people really come together and form a formidable force as we move into 2022 general election. One, we do not deny the fact that this country needs an economic revolution, which is agreeable. When you go to One Kenya Alliance, you go to the Mount Kenya, of course, the political leadership caucus, you go to Raila Odinga's Azimio la Umoja, that we really want to have an economic revolution in this country. That all of them are really in this pursuit of ensuring that we have a unity of purpose for the whole country. They are all united towards ensuring that we deal with this monster called corruption amidst us. So when they all have one vision, really, that they stand on almost a similar ideology and political philosophy, then there's nothing that can really bar them or deny them this push really to unite and go to 2022 general election as a united force. And that was really exemplified yesterday during that NDC by Wiper Party, where Raila Amolo Odinga even came out and said he's very certain that given he's worked with former Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka, who is the Wiper Party leader, they have worked together in the past during even the NAR coalition that brought into power Mwai Kibaki's regime in 2002. They have worked together during of course, the orange and banana politics in 2005. We know they went separate ways in 2007. But eventually, they even came and worked together in the Grand Coalition government that was led by President Mwai Kibaki 2007 to 2013. What am I trying to say, essentially, Dr. Masanga, is that you also remember Kalonzo Musyoka as deputized Raila Amolo Odinga as his running mate in 2013 general election and consequently 2017 general election. So as we head into 2022 general election, there's nothing that completely rules out the possibility of Kalonzo Musyoka or even the entire One Kenya Alliance really working with Raila Amolo Odinga to achieve this greater vision for this country. To me, the call for unity of purpose is what stood out for me. When you see all these people, sometimes they make different opinions and views and political statements out there. But when they come together, they cannot deny the fact that they need to work together. And that is the appeal we are making out here as ordinary Kenyans. I submit, Dr. Arif.
Thank you very much, Tawish. Candidly, it looks like we are going in the same direction and we are going to work together. There is no way a country can be left to work, to be dismembered by politics. A legacy of President Uhuru Kenyatta cannot be achieved if you leave politics of hate, incitement. Wesonga, bring us up to date.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Masanga David. And of course, I would really like to start by lauding the magnanimity of Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, the Wiper leader, for understanding that perhaps this is the time where Kenyan political leaders, especially those who are aligned by the unity call of President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta and the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, need to unite. Because as you see, the country is actually being taken to the dogs. The hustler narrative has been a very, very divisive narrative. You know, this is an incitement strategy where young people and those who feel that they are poor or maybe lower in the social strata are made to feel that perhaps there are some animals which are more equal than others, like it was in the animal farm. So to me, I think these are very, very good initiative. And I believe that in future, in the few coming days, we're going to see even other people like Musalia Mudavadi, who is not fully into whatever unity call that the president has been preaching, come on board and put aside their personal interests and be able to endorse one person that will be able to take on William Ruto and be able to save this country. But as it is, Dr. Matsanga, if these people do not unite, like Mama Charity Ngilu said, then they will be giving William Ruto a direct ticket to State House. And Kenyans know pretty well what that means. You can see how many people behind William Ruto who have been implicated in corruption scandals. You can see how many cases just locally where the allies of deputy presidents are facing in courts right now. And in fact, one individual actually said, and that is Mwalim Abdu Badida, said that when you look at UDA, it looks like a successful law firm where we have one side, one half is criminals who are having court cases, and one half we have lawyers who are representing them. So that is where our country will go if these leaders do not unite. And I believe this humble sign by Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka will be just a beginning of a much robust conversation between all these key political leaders to bring together and foment a very, very strong force that will be able to form a super coalition that will salvage this country. And the headlines on the newspapers, if it is anything to go by, then I believe that is what every right-thinking Kenyan wishes for. I submit.
Thank you very much, all of you. Thank you for that. There is nothing new that we can talk about except to say the only thing needed for Kenya and of what they should do now, not tomorrow, not any time, now, is the unity of purpose. You cannot take this country to elections, the bumpy road towards elections. The two questions that I asked this morning, that I seek answers. The two questions that I ask, which is very, very clear. is who is again allowing an election to go badly? Who is allowing the elections to go badly? The Electoral Commission is letting us down. You Kenyans yourselves, you are seeing it. It is coming, it is going on, and it is working all the time. There you are. And the Electoral Commission still waits until the things go out of hand. Kenya needs to work out a legacy. President Uhuru Kenyatta needs to leave a legacy where people will respect the country and respect the rule of law. The way things are going, it is not very good at all. So we need to rethink. We need to sit down. We need to work as a community, the people. Thank you. Let's now move on. Our viewers, this week, the week was, I want to bring you some breaking news coming out from London about COVID-19 and from South Africa. We better say be frank and alert than to be sorry. United Kingdom this morning or last night gazetted 6 countries, again in Africa, for their planes not to land in London or in any European destinations. And most of the European countries have started doing so. The countries that were gazetted last night were the following. And we want to be very candid and say them here so that in case something goes wrong, people should not say they were not told. 6 countries from Africa were put back on the red list. South Africa, Namibia, Lesotho, Botswana, Eswatini, and Zimbabwe, sorry. If you are a traveler from those countries, the Kenya Airport Authorities must, and I repeat, must check, work, and scrutinize every passenger coming out from those countries. Otherwise, Kenya is bound to lose the slot that we had on the British route. Many people this Christmas would like to go away, and many people this Christmas would like to come back here. The tourism industry, together with the Ministry of Health of Kenya, must actually now step up the vigilance, especially airplanes that are coming from South Africa, Zimbabwe, Lesotho, Eswatini, Botswana. There is a new virus, a strange virus, which is more powerful than this other one. I don't know why God, but you can't question God. You just leave it to God. The scientists know what is happening. I don't know why each and every new virus is coming after this one. So again, we must go back to our social distance. Wash your hands, keep yourself clean, sanitize your hands all the time. Thank you very much, viewers. That is a new thing that is happening right now in United Kingdom. From noon today, no plane from those countries will land, or passengers from those countries will land. They have to go back to the red list, which means you have to pay money in advance for your hotel accommodation. You have to do quite a lot. Kenyans don't want to go through that again. Kenya had escaped this bad behavior of the virus. So this is something that we must, all of us, please, all of us, whether you are not in government, whether you are in government, whether you are what, when I see my people campaigning and they are now everywhere, I feel very scared. A new disease has arrived. A new disease is on the horizon. Please be careful and let the Ministry of Health work out. All those people arriving from those countries must be scrutinized properly. Otherwise, we might have to be put on a red list again, which could make Kenya and the Kenyans suffer who have families across, who have families across in the UK and who want to come here for holiday to escape the cold weather in the United Kingdom. I submit, therefore. Any comments? Quick one sentence, Tawish.
Yes, Dr. I suppose the kind of alert or travel advisory that has been issued by the US, something we cannot quite just vilify, because I think it is a challenge and a call on us really to be able to up our game in as far as trying to deal with this pandemic and the spread of it. And if there are any laxities that are being maybe experienced, being undertaken, or negligence by these particular countries you've spoken about, then I think it is just a challenge that they have to rise to the occasion and do the necessary so that they do not really pose a major threat in as far as the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic is concerned. It may not necessarily because they want to bring down the economies of those nations in terms of tourism by issuing out those travel advisories, but I think it is something that really calls for more action towards making sure that maybe we can do more than what we have done. We can do better in putting up measures to reduce the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic. The question then will be asking, for example, if there are complaints, lamentation coming from those nations that have been put on the red list, how about the other countries in the African continent? How come that Uganda was not put in the red list? How come Kenya wasn't?
Because no. Don't go for Uganda. Uganda was not put on the list because it is doing exactly what the regulations are. Exactly,
and that is my point actually. That's why I'm saying. That's why I'm saying the countries like Zimbabwe and others that have been put on the red list. I mean, they should not complain and ask why specifically them. I think they are not doing the right thing. They are not doing that which has been asked of them in as far as trying to reduce the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic. And that is why I was giving examples of such countries like Uganda or Kenya or Tanzania, because at least they are trying their level best to go by the Ministry of Health protocols and guidelines. They are also going by the World Health Organization. And that what is it that we can do in as far as trying to help individual countries and the continent and globally in reducing the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic. So it is something that they must go to the drawing board and do things the right way. This is not the time really to complain, because it's about our health and the health of the people of these particular nations. Dr. I submit.
Thank you very much, Tawishi. That's a very good example. People are following regulations. Some people are not following regulations. That is period. That is correct. That is happening. Sharon.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Matanga and Tawish, for your sentiments. And of course, I have the same sentiments as all of you have actually raised up. And more so, if I could speak for Kenya, because this is where I am, and I have been observing how people have been, have actually been, behaving, especially once after the economy was opened up. People have, gone back to the old ways of, greetings and, no longer putting on masks and, talk about sanitizing when you talk about washing hands. So that is something that we need to stamp, especially in Kenya, here where we are, that we are not out of the woods yet. And if anything, probably we could, borrow a leaf from these countries that have been put on a red alert, because who knows, if we continue to do whatever that we've been doing now, we could actually be the next people. It's just a reminder and that we are actually not out of the woods yet. Let us, continue to, do in accordance to the, Ministry of Health guidelines. When you talk about washing hands, social distancing, talk about all the stringent measures that have been given. And I remember one of the, there's a time the CS of Health actually said the reason as to why, a while back where there was so much, push and pull of whether he will open up the economy or not. And one of the things that he highlighted, he said that we had still not gotten to, a threshold of 5% positivity rate. And when I follow keenly on, the daily news on how far we are doing, I don't think we are still there. So it shows as much as the economy has been opened, there's still so much to do. We are not out of the woods yet. Let us continue to do what the Ministry of Health requires us to do. Thank you.
Sharon, before you leave that point, let's be very honest, Sharon. I asked this question this week, and I asked all of you Kenyans and ourselves, all of us, including me, who is here, haven't we dropped the guard?
Yeah, definitely. And I've put it up, and that's why I said there's a need to stamp on we've become reluctant, we've become, so relaxed, and people think now that it is business as usual. And when you see such alerts being raised, I mean, these are our neighboring countries, these are our brothers and our sisters. So we cannot, give in and, give a cold shoulder about it, because you never know, we could be next. The World Health Organization is watching. They know very well that, we are back to the economy. So clearly they are watching. And when you actually, listen to the CS and, what comes from the Ministry of Health is that we are not doing so well, regardless. So, and especially now that we are headed towards the festivities, people are traveling, people are doing all sorts of things. So it is very important for us to get back, to the drawing board and do what, the MOH requires us to do.
So that's it. We have lowered the guard. Very few people carry this thing here. I don't know whether you have it there. Are we still here? Tawish, I know you have children in the house. You will still have this. Daniel, show me yours. And I show you my friend.
Yes, sir.
It's very far. Don't hide now. Talk to us when we see you. Where is it? It's very far. People have forgotten about it. People are leaving their homes, walking almost, because Uhuru Kenyatta has said the curfew is over. They have gone back to nightclubs. They dance up to morning, mix up, kiss each other. They go back home. This thing is coming. It is coming again. But the most important thing for Kenya is the airlines that are coming from these countries. Because the British will be tracing if an airline is dropping passengers, which route do you use? Now the safest route of the airline for all those guys from South Africa to avoid is either Dubai or Dar es Salaam, Entebbe, or Nairobi. So they will be monitoring people coming with passports who are coming from South Africa, and they have a lot coming on Kenya with Kenya Airways, with South African passports or Botswana. If they find there are very many who are passing through the dredging because they came from Kenya, they will put us on red list directly, automatically. So it is very, very important for those airlines like Kenya Airways to be very careful that when they are booking customers who are coming from those countries that have been red listed, and when they are checking in, they should be stopped to avoid us being put on a red list. What do you think, Daniel?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Masanga. And of course, your sentiments are very, very correct. And whatever even Sharon is saying is very correct. Just recently, I was really surprised that when you go out there, you realize that despite you being fully vaccinated, you might find yourself in a scenario, maybe even in a mall, where you are the only person putting on a mask. And the rest of the Kenyans, I know a majority of whom have not been vaccinated. If you were to take a sample of maybe 10 people, you'll realize maybe 6 or even 7 are not vaccinated. But they are courageously out there walking without face masks, without even the slightest regard to the health protocols that have been put there of social distance, and also maybe not holding hands. So these are the same people who are expecting the economy to be better in the wake of COVID-19, so that people can go, maybe the pandemic can ease up the grip on the country, and we can go out there to be able to continue with our daily activities. You know, in the wake of COVID-19, one maxim that has come into place is that not allow a few ignorant and negligent individuals to cost the lives and the livelihoods of a majority. You know, there are these few individuals who think perhaps even by getting the vaccine, then perhaps it's not something that it is amongst their priorities. These are the people who are making the world actually have a lot of repercussions. And when you talk about countries being put in red lists, I believe in whichever way, no country should risk the health of its citizens because maybe somewhere in another country, a few individuals have refused to comply with the protocols that have been put there by the World Health Organization. So I support you that any country that do not show any effort or do not even work hard to ensure that its people comply with these health protocols, and including but not limited to taking vaccines, is put on the red list, so that whenever we have the pandemic, the numbers of the COVID-19 soaring in another country, you are led to solve your own mess. You do not let these messes to trickle into other countries. And I believe in as much as that is concerned, Uganda has done exemplary well. Kenya has done quite well. Zimbabwe has been on the forefront in the Southern African region to roll out vaccines and ensure that its citizens actually comply with the COVID-19 World Health Organization protocols. So to me, I think, Dr. Masanga, it all rolls down to individual responsibility. Let people go out there, let them club, let them walk without face masks, but no, by the time they'll want to go to a country like Britain or maybe the US, if they continue acting recklessly, then they'll be pulled out of the place, be told because they have not been serious in regards to compliance with the health protocols to combat COVID-19. So let everyone know, let every country know that whatever decisions they make in regards to combating COVID-19, it will have far-reaching implications. Whether they comply to the protocols or they choose to ignore it, then they will have the implications, whether positive or negative. I submit, Dr. Masanga.
Thank you very much. Daniel, Let's move to another this week that was. The director of DCI, the subject I've avoided talking about, the courts, the judiciary in this country. Are we in a civil war, a political, judicial civil war, a civil war between the executive, activists, judiciary, judges, fighting the government of Uhuru Kenyatta? Let's put it correctly there in the middle, unfiltered. It is true. Someone has paid and is paying and is forcing and putting pressure on the judges to put President Kenyatta's executive to collapse. If I'm wrong, again, write it down and take it in history. That unless we sit down, unless the Chief Justice and the President come on a round table, I'm a man who still believes in discussion. I'm a man who does not give up on peace and initiatives. I always talk about, see what can be done. I always make sure that I struggle to the last inch. Is there a way the judges, the judiciary can work with executive? Otherwise, the speed at which we are going through, we are in chaos. Tawish, make points quick, and then we go. Tawish, your take. Gitonga.
Thank you, Dr. Matsanga, and I agree with you that, there has been so much push and pull, especially between the judiciary and executive. And when I look at, what happened to the DCI some days ago, when you look at it, it looks like, an issue of a sabotage, because clearly and outrightly that he has actually been doing such a commendable job before. And all these fights are, unwarranted, even given that, the DCI was not just able to return, Wanjigi's firearms. And I believe he knows the reason, he knows the reason. So my appeal would be, for the CJ, to keep his to put his house in order, so that we don't keep having all these back and forth, and not just even the CJ, all these other independent institutions we've seen before, the DPP and the DCI at crossroads, and at the end of the day you realize that all these arms have to work together for them to actually be able to deliver services to the people. We all look up to them to provide justice, and justice is very critical. In our Kenya national anthem, we say that justice is our shield and defender. So you cannot, go, anywhere you go around, it is about justice. So at the end of the day, all these institutions, whether they have personal differences or whichever kind of differences, they have to keep, their personal differences aside and work together in cohesion, so that, they can be able to, give justice to the people. There's so much that has been said about judges, and, there's quite so much. And, at the end of the day, all eyes, are looking up at, to the CJ to put her house in order, because at the end of the day, when justice is delayed, justice is denied. Thank you.
Wesonga, thank you very much, Sharon.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Masanga. And from my end, where I sit, I think the judiciary is full of activism, and this activism draws back to whatever perhaps allegation you've been bringing on board, which are very valid, that we have some external powers, external forces that are trying to actually tweak and divert the way the judiciary should actually operate. And they're diverting it away from serving the people of Kenya to serving international small interests of key financiers like George Soros. And that couldn't be any further from the reality, because you realize that in as much as the DCI, George Kinoti has done a commendable job, and even this ruling happens in the wake of him being given a higher mandate within the Interpol. You know, it means that as a society, we've come actually to a point of trashing the best people we have in our system, just at the altar of having monies from George Soros and other international players. And that tells you that this is an activist judge, because one, how many Kenyans hold such kind of guns and they are allowed to keep them in their houses? You know, if the security apparatus or the security agencies feel that these are military guns, these are special forces guns that should not be in the hands of a civilian, then why do they feel like Wanjigi should have his cake and eat it? I think this is just adds to the statistic how corrupt our judges are. The other day, former Governor Mike Mbovi Sonko, who I do not agree with in matters of principle and many other things, shared a very endemning video of how corruption happens in the judiciary. And I think that is the reality of the matter. These judges are bribed. These judges are given money from all the illicit entities, both locally and internationally, and therefore their judgments can never be taken as the gospel truth. How do you feel as a Kenyan if Justice Juma Said Chitembo, who has been implicated in corruption, and you know, there's nothing there to prove, you know, it is in the court of public opinion. Any Kenyan with the basic, you know, understanding of life could tell that this is a judge who sat in a precinct where corruption conversation was going on and perhaps benefited from it. Is the same judge who is going to listen to their cases, you know, determine their cases even this week. And what happens to thousands of cases that have been ruled by this judge if he's perhaps found culpable of taking bribes and engaging in other corruption-related enterprises? So that is the kind of judiciary that we have. That is the kind of the judiciary that Dr. William Mutunga left for Kenyans. A very corrupt judiciary, a judiciary which do not care about the justice of a common mwananchi, a judiciary which only cares about their stomachs and how much bribes they're going to receive in this and the other case. And going by what Grand Mullah Ahmed Nasir said the other day, he said that initially the corruption in the judiciary was between judges, clients, and using the lawyers as the intermediaries. But the level we are as a nation in our judiciary, we have a corruption enterprise where even judges have struck out the lawyers as the intermediaries for collecting bribes, and they're collecting the bribes themselves. And you saw in the Sonko implications how the judges were doing it. In fact, it goes even a step further of including another angle of impunity, where they say male judges have to take 20 million Kenyan shillings, and we give the female one 5 million Kenyan shillings. You know, these are people even who do not have regard for gender parity, even in corruption. So I think, Dr. Matsanga, my bottom line is the judiciary is rotten, and the judiciary will be the tool that will be used by those who have impunity to fight any good, any person in government who means well for the people of this country. And I believe DCI Kinoti is one of those people who actually mean well for this country. And we have seen also other people like even DPP being fought really hard by the same characters in the judiciary. So to me, I don't think this judge made a very sound ruling, and it's all about witch hunt.
Thank you very much. It's all about witch hunt. Tawish, is there a witch hunt?
Indeed, Dr. I can't agree more with what my colleague panelists have indeed said, that this could be a witch hunt against the DCI. And more so, I think the judiciary as well, or a section of officials in the judiciary, are hell-bent on making sure that they frustrate the work of the police. And when they do so, of course, they will be frustrating the work of President Uhuru Kenyatta. You know, security and the office of the DCI is one which is very, very critical, not only on the aspect of security in the country, but as well when it comes to the coming general election. and they know what George Kinoti is able to do, what he has been able to do ever since he came into power, and that is why you see they're trying to defeat his, of course, continued stay and working in the DCI. Therefore, Dr. Masanga, this is something that must be looked into critically. I know there was that ruling made by the courts that maybe Kinoti must surrender the guns or the weapons to one, of course, Wanjigi. But the question then we should be asking, in as much as this is a right of an individual, does it supersede the rights of the entire country, the right of the entire country? They usually say that your right ends where mine begins. So if George Kinoti is right to acquire this gun or to acquire the weaponry that is in possession of the Kenya security apparatus, is going to jeopardize say or put to risk the security situation in the country. I think the DCI is in the right position really to take that stand and not to hand over the guns. I remember him even saying he's ready to go and serve the jail term, but not to allow these guns, sophisticated weaponry, really to be handed back to Jimmy Wanjigi. As to why they insist that this must really be done, I do not understand, because there's always also a criteria. You know, sometimes judges and courts issue some verdicts and rulings in this country as though they live in Jupiter. They feel like they are not part and parcel of this nation, that they do not understand the security threat maybe that these guns, when they get into possession of a civilian, could really pose, especially at a time when we're heading into the general election. So I think it is a very good stand that George Kinoti has taken, that is not going to hand over back these guns, whichever way the courts are going to rule. And the only thing then I will advise is that because this is a court ruling that has been made, I think the office of the DCI as well as government apparatus, that is through the Attorney General, must be able to continue with the appeal, and we ask that this appeal really must succeed. They must pull efforts to make sure that the appeal by, of course, DCI boss George Kinoti succeeds, so that we do not see him really being thrown into a jail or committee, because there's so much excitement from certain quarters, and you can quite really understand. There are people, the politicians in this country, who have been pointing fingers at DCI boss George Kinoti. And it is not also lost to us, Daktari, that the courts that we have today, the judiciary that we have today, most of its officers really are compromised a lot. They are a rotten lot. They are activist judges, and they can really be compromised because there's so much that is happening in this country that you cannot quite wish away the fact that these judges can be compromised to settle some political scores, and more so when the judiciary appears to be at loggerheads with the executive. They will want to defeat anything that portends success for President Uhuru Kenyatta, and even as he serves his second and last time in office and in achieving his legacy. But I want to ask that DCI boss Kinoti stands his ground, but equally so, the Attorney General must then pull the best of his foot forward to ensure that the appeal they are putting in the Court of Appeal must really succeed. I submit that, Terry.
Thank you very much. Another news coming in is the former Speaker, Olo Kamparo. The wife has filed divorce papers after 40 years of marriage. Sharon, it's Friday. Can you tell us more about these divorce proceedings? What's going on, Sharon? You are the only lady here. What makes you wake up after 40 years of love, go and destroy your entire family?
Thank you.
I'm not putting a burden on you.
I would love to understand.
Songa, what lessons do you learn? And Tawish, because yes. for me, Sharon, I'm just giving a general talk so that you know the boundaries. I have been married for 45 years. And our children have grown, they have gone. A divorce at the moment doesn't help me because I need only one room to sleep in. Sharon, please, why are you looking down now? I need one room to sleep in, which I can get. I have passed retirement age, which I can now use retirement as a basis and say, okay, I've distributed all my assets to various people that they will not fight me again. I don't borrow money on credit card. I have nothing. So tell me, that's my experience, 45 years. Yesterday I was telling you, me, when I see a woman starting a quarrel, what do? I gave advice to my friends here, the younger men who have just married. Just pick your keys and take a walk. Say, Madam, I'm just picking some milk from the kiosk. And I go and sit there, give the kiosk attendant to deliver milk at home. And later on, call her, she will come and pick you by Uber. You will know the love has come back. Don't sit there and fight her. This is the time of violence. We don't want violence. Just walk away and don't fight. She will realize she needs you. Okamparo, as papers are being filed, that's the situation as it is now. Thank you.
Well, probably before I give my sentiments, I would love to find out what is the reason for the divorce. Probably from where I sit, I tend to look at it from a point of violence or maybe issues of assault, because that's what has been, so pronounced lately. And being a gender champion, this comes at a time where we are actually, there's an activism that is ongoing, against the gender-based violence. It is meant to run for 16 days, and today actually marks the second day. And the biggest theme of, the theme of these, the theme of these, activism is actually to end violence against women now. So probably I would want to find out the core reason to these divorces, because I think what is on the rise and what women are afraid to speak, and with the fear of being judged, and so many women and girls at large. Actually, I was doing a national statistics that says over 40% of women continues to experience gender-based violence. So I think that is one of the major reasons. I am not yet sure about this kind of a divorce that you're talking about, but as far as I'm concerned, there's a rise of GBV and violence, especially among women, and so many women are afraid to speak up because they are gonna be judged. Recently, I saw a very very sad story of a 22-year-old on, I think, Nation, that had her limbs cut off. And I mean, so where did we go wrong? Maybe the men in the panel can advise us. Where did we go wrong for you to get to a point where you literally want to, cut down limbs for a very young person, a very young and ambitious person who has so much that they are meant to achieve. And you see now, when they do not have limbs or hands, it means, life comes to life at one point or another comes to has to come to a standstill. I understand that there are some institutions that have been put aside for this kind of issues, but still there's so much stigma, especially among women. People are afraid to speak up because there's a saying that when you speak up, probably you're gonna be judged. You're going to look at the bad, you're going to be painted as the bad person. So there's quite so much. And especially during this period of the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, I think it is a conversation that we can keep ongoing to see, because I believe even not just women, I think there are also men that are products of these kind of violences. And I would want to hear from different people, not necessarily victims, but even champions, for us to continue to spreading the gospel about ending gender-based violence. To see how we can, probably bring this to, if not to an end, but we see how we can be able to, stabilize this whole issue. Thank you.
Yes, and maybe if I'll just come in, Sharon, to put an appendage on whatever you've talked about. I believe when we talk about gender-based violence, it is a bit unfortunate that it happens in this particular age and era. And of course, also my advice will always be, if you are in an abusive kind of relationship, then the best way is to actually leave. If you cannot, if you feel like you are always getting threats and all that, then you can always leave. Now to digress and go back to whatever Dr. Matsanga maybe was talking about the former speaker, Francis Ole Kaparo. If you've been in marriage for more than 40 years, probably you are people almost reaching the pinnacle of your lifetime. You know, you've done so much, a lot together, in that the only thing you are waiting for perhaps now, it's your day with your Lord, and there's little that is remaining in terms of even, maybe moving forward, in terms of that kind of relationship. So I believe, to me, even if it were myself, after 40 years of marriage, calling it quits, I don't think it really makes some sense. You better, because at this particular time you have older children who have children, so you have grandchildren. Some of them even might be great grandchildren, and you realize that now, as grandparents or great grandparents, you have all these children looking up to you. And I believe some of those things, like a divorce, shouldn't even cross your mind, because once your grandchildren see such a thing, then I believe it will bring a very negative notion across their mind about marriage. So I agree with Dr. Matsanga that perhaps whatever you need in such an arrangement is just maybe a single room where you can quietly be sitting and maybe just wait for the day, your sunset days to come, and then after that you'll go be with your Lord, because it doesn't make any sense. After 40 years of marriage, you are people now who are heading towards 80s perhaps, or even 70s. So it does little essence for you to file a divorce, unless there are some deeply compelling reasons. But I don't think it will be wise. I'm not an elder, but I believe that is even what the children or even the grandchildren will want.
Probably because before someone else comes in, I could give my verdict about what you just said. I don't think staying is actually the solution. In some extent, you'd better just leave. I don't know what is the case, but you see, women are known to actually endure. One could actually endure for years without, being able to live. And even what the society paints us, being wives out there, you're told you had better stay and, continue working it out. But sometimes I always believe that to some extent, arbitration, it really does not work. If it doesn't work, just walk out. It doesn't matter whether you have invested in the marriage for 50 years or 40 years, like this case. You cannot try to live, pleasing the society. At the end of the day, I think a divorced daughter is better than a dead daughter. So for me, the time is ripe. I don't see the reason as to why you should, stay behind. If it doesn't work, just pack and go.
All right, but Sharon, maybe just to come in, in this particular case, we are looking at someone of Kaparo's age. That is someone who is actually heading to 80 years, of age. How many maybe sunset days does he have? You can give him maybe 20 more years, or maybe 10, or even 5. So to me, it doesn't really make sense. It's just the same case when the Eldoret billionaire Mzee Kibor instituted a divorce against his wife of so many years. So what that brings to the limelight, at that particular time, you saw a lot of people saying it was a bit unnecessary for you to divorce someone you've been for over 40 years, and you've built an empire together and all that. And mostly you realize that these elderly people who go for divorce, they are people who have made a lot of money, made a lot of wealth, and they don't have just a single home. They have several homes. So to me, I think arbitration outside the court, without going to the limelight, will do them much justice. And also just looking at the fact that you are a role model. I believe for those ones who are married, you wouldn't want to quarrel with your wife or your husband before your children. And that is the same thing. Whenever an elder statesman goes to court in matters divorce and all that, I believe it brings a bad image, and I believe these are issues that should be solved amicably. Anyway. Maybe, Tawish, if you could bring in your...
very well, thank you so much. Of course, Sean and Sharon Gitonga on this particular discussion, but you understand where I come from. This is it's a very sensitive matter. We're not quite made to discuss matters to do with those people who are elders in our society. And Kaparo, coming from where I come from the community where I come from, the Ma community, this one I will say is quite embarrassing, and it is exposing him to public shame. And I do not quite understand the details of the spouse in this matter, the one who is seeking this particular divorce. But I can quite tell you, this is not what we are made really to deal with such kind of issues when they come up in our society or the community where we come from. I do not understand why it is gotten to a level where it has come to the public limelight. These are things that elders would have sat down somewhere and a bull is slaughtered if there's a mistake that in the Ma culture, there's no big mistake that is actually not forgivable. That is as far as I know. Whether it is about promiscuity, whether it's about unfaithfulness, whether it's about and whatever case it could be, there's no mistake or sin in the Ma culture that is not forgivable. As long as you go through the laid down procedures and protocols, you can quite be forgiven. Assuming, for example, this lady was unfaithful maybe to Lekaparo, it's Lekaparo who's been unfaithful to the lady, then there are procedures that you are supposed to undertake for the forgiveness to be able to take place. But you see, we are living in a different generation altogether. There could also be a different age gap. It could as well be that the lady comes from a completely different community setup where they did not understand some of these things we are speaking about, and therefore in itself complicates, rather defeats any initiative or effort really to bring them together and be able to reconcile. I think to a large extent, much as it is an embarrassment, it is a very big shame for this to have happened and come to the public limelight, especially for the person of the stature of Lekaparo. You know, he's not just an ordinary Kenyan, he's a high-profile individual in this country. You are a long-time serving speaker in this country and a high-profile Maasai leader in this country. So you cannot quite say this is a small thing, because when matters of marriage come to the fore like they're happening now, it is likely going to throw him into this public embarrassment. But be that as it may, if going separate ways will serve them best, say for the lady or for Lekaparo, so be it, my brother Sean Wesonga, because we wouldn't quite want to see another worst thing really happening. Say, for example, the lady just losing her life, because it could likely really happen. Or even Lekaparo, for the simple thing that they could maybe choose to divorce. What I would advise is, in as much as they could be choosing this route of divorce, they must do it in a dignified manner, so that we do not want to see the kind of tantrums, the kind of insults. You've seen what happened to Alfred Mutua the other day. They first of all came and told us theirs was a dignified kind of divorce or a separation. But what came after that is something that you cannot really equate to what they used to tell us when they were separating. So I would expect that if every effort has been defeated so far, and the only remaining thing as it is, it will be a divorce, let that divorce be with dignity, and one which is not going to embarrass them and put them into further public shame. I think that will be the best way forward. Sean Wesonga and Sharon Gitonga.
Okay, maybe Sharon, you could come in and give your rejoinder before Tawish closes the show for us.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I think what Tawish has said, by far and large, that is exactly what it's supposed to be, especially at this society where we do not know exactly what transpired toward but I'm just trying to speak as a woman and to actually see what happens. And I think it's high time the society probably stop, putting us so much pressure, and expecting a certain way of how things used to be ran, like in the old days where they tell you, what, you have to stick there, regardless, you have to stay there. They say in marriage, and this is a word that is so common, they say that in marriage, quote unquote, people need kuvumiliana. So that thing of kuvumiliana is what has seen so many lives. Look at what happened to the recent Tirop, a very ambitious lady, especially in the athlete world. So I think if arbitration, for me, I still stick by it. It doesn't work. If something is not working, just walk out and walk out in peace. At the end of the day, if you find peace wherever, that is what that matters. Thank you.
Tarisha, you can close it for us.
Well, I think maybe just before you close it up, and maybe as we also anticipate, of course, I'm not very sure whether Dr. Masanga will be able to come back. But again, we've made a significant stride and contribution so far on this program. Maybe just a brief comment on the two of you as regards to this meeting by Raila Amolo Odinga in Nyeri today. Of course, we understand there's the Luo and the Kikuyu elders really meeting, and the political leadership, those especially who are supporting Raila Odinga's Azimio la Umoja. And I understand the Nyeri chapter will, of course, also be taking place today in Nyeri. What is it that we are looking up to, especially in this meeting today? Because looking onto of course, the expectation, the anticipation of people as regards to this meeting, even those who are allied to President Uhuru Kenyatta, they're saying that it's going to be a big announcement, one which is going to send tremors to the handshake and to the Azimio la Umoja critics. I don't know, what do you foresee in this particular Azimio la Umoja, of course, meeting in Nyeri this time around? Let me begin with Sharon Gitonga.
Thank you for that question. And for me, I think in the spirit of tolerance and doing mature politics, that the former Prime Minister has actually proved with time that he's been able to. He's one of the leaders that has been able to do mature politics. And I am expecting a level playing field in terms politically. I do not expect any kind of violence. It's just like we've kept on saying that, this country belongs to each and every one of us. The country is bigger than all of us. So there is no bedroom that belongs to anyone. And I think I saw Mutahi Kahiga, it's called Kahiga, yeah? He said he's actually extended his hand to welcome the former Prime Minister. So let us, allow each and every person, regardless of their ethnicity, regardless of their tribe, to just come and sell their manifestos and, to sell their ideologies. And we've kept on saying before that if you actually don't, subscribe to a certain political party, just stay at home. Do not stir up any violence or, any kind of pre-election violence like what we saw in Kondele. So for me, I'm expecting a level playing field. I do not expect any much of this kind of violence that we've seen before. And if anything, because if anything is actually, if anything that comes up, let us see people actually being brought to book. And if any of these other leaders actually is perpetrating to probably pay up for them to actually cause stir up violence, this should actually be called out. And I'm expecting that if anything actually happens, that we have people actually being brought to book. But as far as from where I sit, I think Raila is one of the leaders that has proved before, when you saw he actually went to, in Rift Valley, an area that is perceived to be, the deputy president's stronghold, and nothing actually happened. He just sold his manifesto and, life went on. So I am expecting the same to happen, and, even leaders to actually cooperate and work hand in hand, even, with the certain political leaders that are in that place. Finally, I am hoping that, more, because you understand now this is a weekend, we expect to see them, going up and down. I hope there is a wealthy nation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sharon, for that submission. And Sean Wesonga, as we wind up on this, it's been famed as one of the biggest Azimio La Umoja summits to ever happen ever since former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, of course, launched the Azimio La Umoja forest in the country. And of course, also the coming together of the Luo Council of Elders, alongside, of course, their counterparts from this other side of the divide, that is Central Kenya. What is it that, how significant is this particular meeting today, especially as we look forward for Raila Odinga making that also big announcement on the 9th of December? Sean Wesonga.
Yes, thank you so much, my brother Tarwish Sasina. And of course, we have to be privy to the fact that for the 4 times Raila Odinga has run for presidency, never has he ever stepped even foot in Mount Kenya during the heat of the campaign. Leave alone even the people of Mount Kenya just discussing about Raila Odinga. Over the weekend, I was in Mount Kenya, in Nyeri, to be specific, and you could hear in the remotest of villages, people discussing about Raila Odinga. So my take about this particular meeting, I believe that Raila Odinga is actually climbing the mountain. And if we have to couple that with the opinion polls that we've been seeing over time since the beginning of Raila's, is that perhaps Raila is gaining ground in as much as Dr. William Ruto is actually plummeting in the same Mount Kenya region. So to me, I believe this kind of a meeting will give Raila Odinga a boost in his quest for State House. And remember, the people of Mount Kenya want someone who is seeking a partnership with them, not someone who comes to insult their leaders and beat his chest and say how he is the Mount Kenya kingpin. As far as I'm concerned, President Uhuru Kenyatta is still the Mount Kenya kingpin, and until perhaps he leaves office, I believe he still have that particular mandate to give direction to the mountain. And even after he leaves office, I believe he's still a young man who can still engage himself in politics if need be. If he deems it quite okay for himself, he can still guide the Mount Kenya nation in whichever direction that they want to take that will benefit the community. So to me, I think these are very, very good move. It's a great event, and it's going to give Raila Odinga some good political capital. I submit.
Thank you so much, Sean. And of course, I understand Dr. Masanga is back. And Dr. Masanga, we just finished that story about Francis Ole Kaparo, the former speaker. And of course,
you wanted me to summarize, actually take over. Take over, let me summarize.
Yes, indeed, Daktari. And as you summarize on that very topic, Daktari, we're also making, of course, we're trying to get to understand really the ongoing meeting in Nyeri today, the Azimio La Umoja, that has brought together the Luo Council of Elders and, of course, the Kikuyu Council of Elders together. And the people around that region also who support President Uhuru Kenyatta and former Prime Minister Raila Odinga have affirmed this as the biggest Azimio La Umoja ever summit to have ever taken place ever since it was launched by Raila Amolo Odinga. And that there's going to be a very big announcement that is going to send tremors and shivers, especially to the handshake critics and to the Azimio La Umoja opponents. How significant is this meeting, Dr. Masanga? And because normally Sean Wesonga does refer to you as a man who sees big things while seated, those which some of us cannot even see while standing. I do not understand, what is your perspective of the events in Nyeri today, and how significant are they in as far as shaping our political landscape is concerned? As you wind up, Dr. Masanga, also coupled, of course, with that story of Francis Ole Kaparo. Over to you, Dr.
The reasons are adulterous. I think I know what Sharon, my power when there was a technical power knockout. Sharon was on this, was fixing us, boy child. One of the problems, Sharon, can I see your face as I tell you this? One of the problems that that we boy child receive is to be labeled adulterous. But there are some people who become adulterous when there is a mess. For every height, there must be a law equivalent to the height. You can't fall more than how high you went. Have you ever heard of that law? For example, if you are falling from Mount Kilimanjaro, you can't sink deeper than the height where you came from because of the velocity. I'm not a chemist or a physics. Anybody who has done physics will tell you that the velocity is what, the gravity, this. I don't want to go into that. I passed physics by mistake because I was not supposed to pass those subjects. I was shocked I passed biology. Honestly, I passed biology. I could have must be a small boy around the village who is also eyeing. And you will see the reply papers. I have not read the reply papers of Orekaparo. This is like a Cholet and a Cholet. You remember? Madame Cholet left. Boss Cholet left my friend Sam. Up to today, I am paying the man. Then he went and married a Muzungu. You know, the problem that you see, a police department must be started that can help us, we boy child.
There's one already.
Yeah, which can help us, boy child.
No, there's one that was opened the other day called Polycare. So probably men can go and present their, if you have issues there.
Why are you speaking with a lot of confidence? The boy child has problems. But Songa, you have lived with your wife for 40 years. Then you see a Muzungu who has come from nowhere. Huh? And then you see your children are going to be, they will be in the house where the Muzungu is living. Have you seen the pain that you, Sharon, you put us through? The same club where you used to go with your baby, the Muzungu also arrives with your own goods. You know? That's where murder cases begin. So, for younger girls, I told my daughters, please, when you see the thing is not going to work, don't come here and give me dowry. Just do a one-off or two-off or 5 months or 10 months, remain the same. But don't do me this type of things that will cause me chaos. Where now, how does Sam Cholet look at the Muzungu rolling everything that you have grown from the root and the house, you are taken out of the house. Because of the children, you cannot take the house. But the Muzungu now controls the house. So these are some of the things that are very, very painful, Sharon. So when you are going to think of leaving your husband, think about that. Equally on this side, when you are going to leave your lady, think of what she's going to go through. But believe me, in this affair of Okaparo and the wife, there's a small man in the middle called Wesonga there. I'm not saying Wesonga is the one, but there's a Wesonga somewhere now.
Very true.
I am not wrong. And the Sharon don't condemn me for saying what I've said. There is a Sharon somewhere. The marriage is breaking. Sharon or Barbara or Esther is somewhere. Now you have found a new breed, a new broom that is sweeping cleaner than the older one. Tawish, I hand you back. I have a call here. Oh, can you take over? Can you take over, Daniel?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Matsanga. And of course, I totally agree with you that in this kind of divorce, as Ole Kaparos, we need to bring on the table a number of factors to be considered before perhaps we can be able to validate it. But as it is, ultimately, if it doesn't work out, then like my brother Tarwish said, it is always good and fair enough to seek very, very amicable divorce. And that means that we have to settle that outside the limelight, in as much as this is a kind of something that perhaps everyone would want to do. So to me, I believe if I was to give my quite fair opinion, I believe it was a bit unnecessary, because these are people who are at the pinnacle of their lives, and going to courts and having all these conversations, then it's more likely to open the can of worms. And the implications are that the reputation either of the speaker, the former speaker, or the wife is going to go in tatters. And that is something anyone might not wish to have, especially someone of that caliber of a speaker, Francis Ole Kaparo. So in essence, I believe we come at the point of convergence with what Sharon is saying, that perhaps if things do not hold water, then don't kill yourself, don't struggle to hold on to these things. But be as it may, I believe also we have to have a number of considerations to look out when we are talking about this kind of divorce. And that is in regard to how many years have you people been together, and is it quite viable to have such kind of divorce when you've been together for all these number of years? So to me, it's just akin to maybe you enroll for a degree course in a university. It is always very much easier to drop out of the university. Maybe you, let's say, for example, you found some entrepreneurial thing that you could do out there, or maybe you just want to venture into a different field. It is easier for you to drop out at first year or second year. But for you to drop out at fourth year, the last semester, then it doesn't make any kind of sense. And in this scenario, when you talk about someone being in marriage for 40 years, then it's akin to dropping out in fourth year, the last semester. It would have served them quite well. The pros actually outweigh the cons. So it would have served them quite better if they would have held on a little bit, so that they keep their families together and they are able to send a good moral lessons to their lineage, the children, the grandchildren, the great-grandchildren who are looking after them. I submit, Dr. Matsanga. Yes, maybe in this particular juncture, Sharon, you could come in, and perhaps Dr. Matsanga will take over from there.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Daniel Westonga. To probably bring this matter to a close, and maybe I have an appeal to women out there. When it comes to marriage, wisdom is key. And, they say by wisdom, a house is built. By understanding, it is established. And by knowledge, its rooms are filled with precious and pleasant riches. So in any marriage setup, I believe wisdom is of essence. So in this case, women are perceived to have an extra antennae, or what I can call it. So if anything, I believe in this whole issue, by 40 years, I believe they have, tried to seek all matter of arbitrations and, all kind of all things, and for her to actually reach to a point of call it quits. I believe that is what made sense to her, and that is what probably was actually, that was the only option there. But as it is, we do not know the exact reason that led to their for them to divorce. These are just speculations that we're trying to bring about, and generally, because these are things that are happening, and some of these issues that we're actually talking about are what people are talking about. And probably an advice to anyone out there, whether it's a man or a woman, do not be afraid to speak out. These kind of cultures that we have that have been installed by our forefathers, we are in the 21st century. Some of these cultures may not work, because that is why you're seeing very young people actually losing their lives because of the cultures that we have been instilled. You have to stay there. You have to continue working on your marriage. Things are not working. You have to continue staying there. We are talking about violences. We are talking about so much. So if it is not working, and just like most of us have agreed to it, if it is not working, it is only as wise to just walk out and find peace out here. So whatever the case, probably with time we will be seeing what led to what. But what I just gave was just a general view of what is happening, especially in our society, and more so in what is happening in the youths and these young people that are in marriages. Thank you, Daniel.
Okay, and maybe perhaps if we could look at it maybe from the moral perspective. So would it have been better perhaps if in our institutions or maybe even our churches, nowadays you realize that very, very few people talk about such kind of topics, and whatever you find in social media actually is all about stereotyping, maybe about marriages, about relationships and all that. Do you think maybe this is instigated by the fact that as society we've turned a blind eye on the issues regarding marriage and relationships?
Exactly. Absolutely. I agree with you that the society have, lacked when it comes to, discussing issues and, what is affecting our marriages. Because the thing about marriage, and for what I believe, these are two people with different personalities that come together not to compete, but to complement each other. So sometimes you find there's a conflicting interest whereby probably one is a sanguine and the other person is a choleric, all kind of temperaments. So when you're not able to get to a in a negotiating table to put aside all your different characters and work together for the in this institution of marriage, then it becomes an issue. And at the same time, our society has lacks, just like I mentioned, when you talk about churches, and when you talk about even chiefs and these people that are put even in the grassroots to be able to address such matters. So there's also that aspect of laxity, especially in our in the churches. And there's also the fear among especially the youths and the young people to speak out on what they're actually going through. So because one, you fear when you speak out you're going to be judged, and again it also boils down to the cultures that I talked about. When you go to talk to these elderly people, what do they tell you? Us, we have been married for 40, 30 years, and you're not the first person, so you just go and talk to your husband and talk and fight and get to solve these issues amicably. So such kind of cultures and also the society at large has failed. So there's also, it could be a wake-up call even to the society and the chiefs and these people at the grassroots to be able to speak up, because I believe there's so many cases that we've had. What is actually broadcasted in the print and electronic media is just a tip of an iceberg. Thank you.
Okay, I'll take it back to Dr. Masanga David.
Thank you very much. I think let's leave the Kenyan situation. Let's go to the international. No, before we leave, let's look at the ICC. What's your comment? Last night, Sharon, I think you saw exactly how good the program was. I don't know whether you had a chance to see or to listen. Did we ourselves shoot ourselves in the foot?
Well, thank you, Doc. I think I was not able to watch the entire session, but that's something, well, because of the baby and stuff, but that is something I'm planning to create some time, probably during the day, and watch how, what you people had to say about this whole matter. So until then, I may not be able to really authoritatively say, this is what you say, yeah.
All right. Let's give you a summary. It's simple. We erred as Kenyans should not have allowed work envelope to be anywhere near them. By now, it would have been expunged from your books. We don't need to talk much about that. We did yesterday. Thank you very much, Sharon and Daniel. The last item on agenda is come 4 minutes, is Ethiopia. Ethiopia has been on the fringes of very terrible conflict. And this week, President Uhuru Kenyatta was in South Africa. Combining the two in summary, was it a good trip? Yes or no? Don't go into details. Sharon.
Thank you. As I talk about the issue of South Africa, I think so much that was highlighted. And one thing that really stood out for me, I think it was quite a good visit. One thing that stood out for me is the visit for when the president visited, I think it's called Aspen Pharmacare, multinational pharmaceutical company that manufactures and distributes, Johnson & Johnson vaccines. So, and in that, during that period, South Africa actually donated, 100,000 doses. So this is actually going to go a long way to ensure that it actually boosts the country's, vaccination campaign. Apart from that, there was so much, cementing of bilateral ties, which you realize that it's going to go a long way. But I had an issue with the reciprocity of the visas, especially with South Africa and Kenya. Probably that is something we could talk about, because I do not understand why they were not able to reach to a place where South Africa can easily come to Kenya without visas, but the same cannot happen for Kenyans to actually leave South Africa. But I understand there's a second meeting that has been put in place for that. I hope probably we could be allowed, or even Kenyan citizens could be allowed to move to South Africa, freely without visas, like and the vice versa. Thank you.
Let me be Wesonga.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Matsanga. And of course, I believe this particular trip by President Uhuru Kenyatta to South Africa was a very, very quintessential trip, owing to the fact that South Africa is a very, very integral player when it comes to regional economic conversation, because the economy of South Africa is amongst the biggest in Africa, really. And also, in terms of even the regional security situation, I believe the two countries, if they could work quite closely together, then I know, as a matter of fact, they will be able to contain the situation in Addis Ababa, if not even other African countries like Mozambique, South Sudan, Somalia, and many other more that are facing the crisis. And all that works to the good of the African continent. But also, I would really like to draw my inference to whatever Sharon Gitonga has already talked about, and that is the visit to the pharmaceutical company that is manufacturing the COVID-19 vaccine. I believe there is a good takeaway, owing to the fact that the president traveled with some of the key individuals in his delivery unit, and also at State House and other relevant ministries. I believe if they can be able to take that knowledge from South Africa and bring and replicate it back here in Kenya. In a few, maybe in a matter of a year or a few years to come, we shall be able to produce our very own vaccine and be able to cut the dependence on donations and buying vaccines from the Western powers. And that is how things are done. I believe if you are not better in something, then we better go learn it from someone who knows how to do it better. And that is what we are doing. In terms of the bilateral relations, I believe I read through the bilateral relations, and my conclusive take on that is that they are gonna lighten up the way Kenya has been doing business with South Africa, and it's going to increase efficiency and effectiveness of how the two countries actually relate to one another in terms of business, in terms of military intelligence sharing, and also just geopolitical interactions between its citizenry. Only a few things maybe needs to be polished here and there, but that one we leave to the future, because I believe in the coming near future, we're going to be having more and more such productive meetings between the two leaderships of the two countries to make sure that we forge a very progressive Africa and we improve our relations with South Africa. I submit, Dr. Masanga.
Thank you very much. Something that has just come in is, Uganda might lose Entebbe Airport to China, Exim Bank. Where? 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 Have you seen that breaking news? Sharon, cry for my beloved country. We are losing this money. The Entebbe Airport, the wires are saying we might lose Entebbe Airport.
Yes, Dr. Masanga, I believe that is the expansionist theory of China. You know, we've seen even most African countries like Angola falling into such a trap where they take money from the Exim Bank of China, and whenever you are not, you default on the debt, then they come for your asset, be it a port, an airport, whichever thing that has been put as a collateral. And I believe somewhat as African continent, we actually losing our sovereignty to the East, in as much as the West has for so long exploited Africa, but we have now a new other horizon where Africans are actually losing their sovereignty and independence. I will call it some kind of neo-colonialism.
Indeed, it looks like a very serious neo-colonial approach. I don't have words. Thank you very much, viewers across the continent of Africa. This brings us to the end of our show this morning. On that note, Wesonga, I want to say thank you very much for continuing the support for Punchline Africa TV. Sharon and others, thank you very much. God bless you. We see you each other later. Thank you. Keep on working hard. See you on Sunday, 2 p.m. when we shall be discussing at length all the matters of Ethiopia. Asante sana.
Thank you, Dr. Masanga. Enjoy your weekend.
Yeah, you enjoy yours, but don't beat the wife.
If I beat her, she will report me to you.
Yeah.
Afraid.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.